Sometimes the smartest move you'll ever make is letting them think you don't know a thing. Because while they laughed, you learned. While they doubted, you planned. And when the truth came out, you were already miles ahead. This video is about that hidden strategy, the power of restraint, silence, and patience. The reason why appearing to play dumb is not weakness, but the ultimate form of intelligence. Today, I'll show you how this mindset makes people underestimate you and why in the end, that's exactly why you win. Let us begin with something most people never pause to examine. Why do we feel such an urge to react to everything? A word against us, a criticism, a mocking laugh, we leap at it, as if our value is on trial each time. This compulsion to answer every remark, to prove ourselves instantly, reveals not strength but insecurity. A man who is truly secure in his vision does not need to defend himself at every turn. He understands that silence is not submission, it is strategy. It is the art of keeping one's energy intact for the battles that actually matter. Think of the countless hours people spend arguing over trivial matters, exhausting themselves in the attempt to win approval or to save face. They do not realize that each reaction costs them focus, costs them dignity, costs them momentum toward their larger purpose. The wise man recognizes that life is not a collection of small skirmishes, it is a campaign, and only fools squander their resources on every provocation. When you choose silence over reaction, you gain a psychological advantage. You remain unshaken while others reveal their weaknesses in their noise. Consider also how silence unsettles people. When you do not react, when you refuse to feed their desire for conflict, you expose their true motives. They wanted a reaction not because the issue mattered, but because they sought control over your emotions. By withholding that response, you deny them power. This is not passivity, it is a deliberate withholding, a way of turning their weapon back against them. In that moment, you are no longer the one under attack, you are the one observing, learning, and waiting for the precise time to act. Philosophically, silence is a test of mastery over the self. Anyone can speak, anyone can shout, anyone can be provoked, but few can remain still while carrying the fire within. To master silence is to master the ego. The ego demands to be seen, to be heard, to be acknowledged. Yet the truly disciplined spirit understands that every unnecessary word is a leak in the reservoir of strength. By controlling speech, by controlling reaction, you conserve your inner force. This reservoir, preserved and directed, becomes a weapon far more powerful than any outburst could ever be. History is filled with figures who understood this truth. They were underestimated, mocked, even dismissed as incapable. But while their critics wasted time in noise, they were building, preparing, positioning themselves. And when the right moment arrived, their silence gave way to decisive action, action that could not be ignored. This is the paradox. By appearing passive, you gain the freedom to act with greater impact later. Strategic silence is not weakness, it is preparation disguised as humility. In your own life, the challenge will always be to resist the temptation of immediate reaction. Someone will provoke you, question your intelligence, underestimate your worth. Your instinct will push you to prove yourself in that very moment. But ask yourself, what do I gain by reacting now? What power do I lose by surrendering my composure? If the answer is that you gain nothing and lose much, then silence is your victory. It is not a retreat, but an elevation above the petty game of constant defense. When people finally realize why you did not react, they will understand that you were never playing dumb at all, you were playing wise. You were preserving your strength, cultivating patience, and exercising a discipline that few possess. The noise of others cannot harm you unless you choose to join it. Remember this truth and live by it. Silence is not emptiness, it is stored power. And when used strategically, it will speak louder than 1,000 words ever could. The less you react, the more control you hold over them, and most importantly, over yourself. When you study the arc of human behavior, you notice that most people are prisoners of immediacy. They crave recognition, applause, approval right here, right now. Their sense of worth is tied to whether someone else validates their choices or praises their intelligence. This constant hunger for acknowledgement makes them predictable, easy to read, and easy to manipulate. But the man or woman who plays the long game operates on a different plane entirely. Instead of being addicted to short-term validation, they are anchored in vision, in purpose, in something larger than today's passing opinion. And when you live this way, You immediately separate yourself from the masses because you cannot be controlled by the bait of quick praise or the sting of temporary rejection. Think of how often people sabotage themselves because they wanted immediate gratification. A business idea is abandoned because the first few months didn't bring money. A relationship is ruined because they demanded proof of affection every day. A dream is discarded because recognition didn't come fast enough. But what they don't see is that reality rewards patience, discipline, and endurance, not impulsive craving for results. Playing the long game requires that you stop measuring your progress by other people's applause and start measuring it by your own internal compass. Napoleon Hill often emphasized that the greatest achievers were those who cultivated definiteness of purpose. That phrase means you decide where you're going and you hold your course regardless of storms, delays, or the absence of cheering crowds. When you operate with definiteness of purpose, you stop living in reaction to whether people notice you today. You learn to live in service of a goal that might take years before it bears fruit. And here's the paradox. The very patience that seems invisible in the moment is the force that later makes your success undeniable. Psychologically, when you detach from immediate validation, you gain power others don't even recognize. Why? Because most people, even intelligent ones, reveal themselves when you withhold recognition. They show their insecurity, their hunger, their craving for approval. But the one who plays the long game, who can move in silence and endure being underestimated, keeps control of the field. You don't need to prove you're right in the moment, because you know the final result will testify on your behalf. This is how generals win wars, how entrepreneurs outlast competitors, how leaders cement their influence not by being loud in the moment, but by being consistent across time. This principle also reflects a deeper Stoic wisdom, the understanding that what others think or say is outside your control. The Stoics taught that real strength lies in mastery over the self, not in bending the world to praise you. Playing the long game is essentially an exercise in self-mastery. You deny yourself the weakness of needing constant approval. You teach your mind to remain steady in the face of indifference. And over time, the very people who doubted you are forced to respect you, because endurance itself becomes undeniable proof of strength. Notice, too, how this shifts power dynamics in human relationships. If you are willing to wait while others are desperate to be seen, you are already in the position of strength. Toxic people, manipulators, or competitors will try to provoke you into seeking validation. They want you to reveal yourself, to prove yourself, to explain yourself. But if you decline that invitation and simply keep building, you deny them their leverage. The longer you withhold the need to be acknowledged, the weaker their grip on you becomes. This approach requires courage because the world around you celebrates speed, noise, and constant demonstration of success. Social media feeds encourage you to show progress every day, to chase likes, to measure yourself by shallow metrics. But you must remember, those who are truly building legacies are often invisible while they are laying foundations. The skyscraper does not rise overnight. Most of the work happens underground, unseen, uncelebrated, and only after years of hidden labor does the structure appear, commanding respect. Ask yourself, do you want the sugar rush of quick validation, or the enduring fulfillment of undeniable success? Do you want to be seen as clever today, or do you want to be remembered as wise tomorrow? Playing the long game means making peace with obscurity, with being overlooked, with appearing ordinary until the day comes when your results no longer allow anyone to deny your strength. So, the next time you feel the itch to prove yourself, resist it. The next time someone doubts you and you want to react, hold back. Let your silence, your patience, your endurance speak louder than any words could. Because when you are willing to wait while others rush, you win by default. And when the dust finally settles, they will realize that the one who played dumb, who stayed patient, who refused immediate validation, was the one who already held victory in hand. And that is the secret most will never understand. The long game is not about waiting. It is about outlasting. It is about standing firm until time itself exposes the difference between noise and substance. And when that day comes, your silence will roar louder than all their noise ever did. There is a peculiar advantage that comes when people underestimate you. It may feel insulting at first, as if the world has diminished your value, but in truth, it is one of the most powerful positions you can occupy. Why? Because underestimation grants you invisibility. It shields you from the scrutiny that often destroys ambition before it matures. The ego, if left unchecked, constantly seeks recognition. It wants to be praised, to be acknowledged, to be declared superior. But what happens when you let go of that hunger, when you discipline your ego and accept being overlooked? You place yourself in a position to win without resistance, because no one is guarding against the one they think incapable. Think about the psychology of underestimation. When others believe you lack the ability to succeed, they unconsciously lower their defenses. They stop competing with you. They stop anticipating your next move. In their eyes, you pose no threat. And this is exactly where your opportunity is born. While they seek applause, you seek mastery. While they shout about their progress, you quietly sharpen your tools. And when the moment comes, your rise seems sudden, as if from nowhere. But in truth, it was deliberate, the product of discipline and restraint. The ego would have demanded you show your power too soon, but wisdom kept you silent until your strength was undeniable. This principle is not new. History is filled with examples of individuals who weaponized underestimation. A young business competitor ignored because of his age, yet patient enough to build an empire. A leader dismissed as too humble, yet capable of rallying nations when the time was right. The difference between those who succeeded and those who faded away was not intelligence alone, but the mastery of ego. They did not spend their lives proving themselves to skeptics. They spent their lives proving themselves to their own vision. And in the end, the skeptics had no choice but to acknowledge what they once mocked. You see, the ego has a clever way of sabotaging progress. It pushes you to respond to every slight, every insult, every doubt cast in your direction. It tells you that you must correct them now, that you cannot stand being underestimated. But every moment spent defending yourself is a moment stolen from your advancement. Why waste energy proving them wrong in words, when you could prove them wrong in results? The man or woman who learns to delay the gratification of recognition, who allows silence to carry the weight of doubt, will eventually command respect so great it can no longer be denied. Now let's look at the deeper psychology. Underestimation creates two forces: the weakness of your opponent and the strength of your discipline. Those who underestimate you weaken themselves by failing to prepare for your capabilities, and you strengthen yourself by refusing to reveal your hand too soon. The combination of these forces creates an extraordinary advantage, one that cannot be achieved by those who loudly demand attention. The humble strategist, the one who can tame his ego, becomes unstoppable not because he was always seen as strong, but because he allowed himself to be seen as weak until the exact moment it no longer mattered. And here lies the paradox. True strength does not scream. It does not rush to correct those who doubt it. True strength endures silence, embraces humility, and gathers power in the shadows until it is impossible to ignore. When you master your ego, underestimation becomes fuel. It becomes cover. It becomes the cloak that hides your growth from those too distracted by their own pride to notice. So the next time someone doubts you, resist the impulse to fight back with words. Resist the temptation to wear your ego like armor. Instead, allow them their illusion. Let them laugh, let them whisper, let them assume you are weaker than you are. Every dismissal is a gift. It means they are not watching. And if they are not watching, you are free to work in peace, to advance in silence, to build without interference. And when the day comes, as it always does, when the fruit of your discipline is finally revealed, their laughter will vanish. Their underestimation will turn into astonishment, and you will stand, not as someone who demanded recognition, but as someone who earned it beyond question. That is the ultimate victory, won not won by ego, but by its mastery. Remember this truth: let them underestimate you, for it is the greatest disguise your power will ever wear. When you finally free yourself from the invisible chains of approval, you enter a realm of strength that few people ever experience. Most individuals live tethered to the eyes of others, enslaved to the constant need for recognition, applause, or validation. They shape their behavior, their ambitions, even their self-worth around what others may think or say. But here lies the irony: those who win the game of life rarely win it because of others' acknowledgement. They win because they train themselves to move beyond the need for acknowledgement altogether. The approval of others becomes, at best, a bonus, never a necessity. To live above approval is to reclaim sovereignty over your own destiny. Think about it: how many great minds of history were ridiculed, dismissed, or overlooked before their ideas reshaped the world. Galileo was condemned for daring to say the Earth was not the center of the universe. Wright brothers were mocked for their foolish dream of flight. Countless inventors, artists, and entrepreneurs were told they would fail, only to have the world eventually catch up with the truth they carried within. These individuals did not wait for validation before pursuing their work. If they had, their genius would have been silenced forever. What allowed them to persevere was a higher allegiance to their vision, to their purpose, to their inner compass rather than to the applause of the crowd. The need for recognition is a subtle form of slavery. It makes you predictable, manipulatable, and fragile. People can withhold approval as a weapon or grant it as bait, and you become caught in their game. But the person who rises above that need becomes untouchable. They cannot be blackmailed by silence, nor bribed by flattery. Their movements are guided not by the shifting winds of popularity, but by the steady current of conviction. And that kind of person commands a respect that no amount of applause could ever equal. This does not mean you live in arrogance or disdain for others. Quite the opposite. It means you live in freedom. You respect others, but you no longer depend on them. You value feedback, but you do not build your self-image upon it. You welcome recognition when it comes, but you never starve without it. It is the difference between living as a beggar for approval and living as a creator of destiny. And the truth is, once people sense that you are no longer driven by their recognition, paradoxically, they often begin to respect you more. The crowd admires the one who does not need the crowd. When you live above approval, your energy is no longer wasted on performance for others. You redirect it into performance for yourself, into growth, mastery, and contribution. You begin to create not what is popular, but what is true. You begin to act not for applause, but for impact. And it is this shift in focus that separates the truly successful from the endlessly striving. One lives from abundance, the other from scarcity. One is free, the other enslaved. In the end, those who depend on recognition are forgotten when the applause dies down. But those who rise above it leave a mark on the world that endures beyond the noise. Approval fades, legacy endures. That is the great exchange you must be willing to make. To live above approval is to trade the fleeting comfort of being liked for the eternal power of being remembered. So the next time you find yourself seeking the nod, the compliment, the validation of others, pause and ask, am I living for their approval, or am I living for my purpose? Because one will keep you chained, and the other will set you free. And the one who learns to live free of recognition will always win, with or without the applause. When you no longer need them to clap, you finally begin to hear the sound of your own power.